Aloha listeners and welcome to another episode of the Cape and Cowcast, the podcast for everything superhero and all that's awesome in between. I'm your host Alex Burns, guys, and today I'm joined by my bros, Mr. Sam Burns.
I'm back, everyone.
Hey. Guess who we just got back from, buddy?
I was with you. It was the Killing Joke.
Alright, dudes, yeah, so Batman, the Killing Joke, just literally drove to the View in Reading, which is actually kind of far, and when it's pitch black, you're driving back at night, kind of seems like a long drive, but it's not too far, guys, not too far. The point is, one night only. We're surprised it came to the UK because this kind of stuff usually doesn't, does it? We sort of thought one night only showing for Batman, the Killing Joke would hit stateside, 110%, yeah, no problem. So I was really chuffed when it came over to the UK for one night as well. So went over there, had a little drink beforehand. It's all good. Driving, wasn't alcoholic. The point is, Batman, the Killing Joke, very cool in terms of checking it out in the cinema on a big screen, but spoiler review, guys, so tune out if you haven't listened. We're going to be going deep on it. Overall, bit disappointing, Sam, is that fair to say?
I wouldn't say disappointing, I'd use the word underwhelming. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with like that kind of story. I mean, like The Killing Joke is one of the best graphic novels of all time. It's one of the best stories, so I don't think you can really go wrong. I'm pretty sure you and I could like draw something and it would still be enjoyable because of the story that it is, but it was just underwhelming.
Yeah,
that's all it was.
It felt like okay, so let's get into it, guys. So Batman, the Killing Joke, very popular graphic novel, of course, written by Alan Moore, illustrated by Byron Boland as well. It's one of the sort of classic Batman Joker stories. It's been used as, you know, you watch it, you reread it, as I've done sort of before even sort of checking it out again. You watch it again, the lines that are in it, it's stuff you see in the Nolan movies. You know, they've used the sort of Batman Joker dynamic in so many things. The animated series is sort of all kind of stems from this sort of eternal struggle. It's built in the comics, but Alan Moore really sort of touched upon it and brought it to the front. And it's sort of like, it's not one of my personal favourite sort of like graphic novels, but I can understand why it's held in such esteem. And I was really looking forward to seeing it adapted and brought to the big screen as it was. So they showed it at, a big screen and stuff. And I mean, so Bruce Timm's involved, Sam Liu. We know this team. They've been doing the DC animated movies for a long time. We bring back Kevin Conroy as Batman. You cannot go wrong with that guy. He's just the dude. Mark Hamill is the Joker. There is no better Joker in terms of like that voice. Just is the Joker. Playing a very different type of character here. And then you got Tara Strong returning as well as Barbara Gordon, Batgirl. She plays everyone. Tara Strong, you've heard her voice in like a million things, so it's great for her to be back. But let's start from the beginning. The big change from this one is the pretty much like half an hour introduction to the actual The Killing Joke. It's a background story that's totally added on, not in the graphic novel at all. Batgirl, Batman, bit of history, and a bit of sexual history there as well. So yeah. Guys, spoiler review, so you know exactly what we're talking about. How did that sit with you? The whole beginning, no Joker, just half an hour of...
Well, I liked how, because the first thing Batgirl says, because she's like narrating this overview picture of Gotham, and she just basically says, I'm guessing this isn't how you thought the story would start. Yeah. I thought that was a bit cheesy, but I just was kind of like, okay, I'm accepting it. Like, I would hate it if it was just, or it would be boring if it was just like a complete adaptation page per page of The Killing Joke. And I thought it was cool to just be like, here's a random Batgirl story. Yeah. But that's fine. Just give a little bit more development about why Batman, if he needs a reason to, would get like pretty peeved off of what the Joker eventually does to her. And it's fine. It's just like a animated series episode, isn't it? It's literally him and Batgirl. Like, but that's not. I think it's lazy in a sense, but also it wasn't completely unfounded. I think it was a good idea to have. It just where it progressed to, which was ridiculous. Yeah,
I feel like, okay, so, it's an R-rated movie, it's a 15 over here in the UK. There's some mature themes explored. Of course, the graphic novel would be an R if they just adapted it without sort of all the added on. But there are a few sort of bits. I mean, Brian Azzarello, great comic book writer, he's been tasked with sort of translating this, and for the most part, I think he's done a good job. With the Batgirl thing, I think, you're saying it's not without merit, and I think to a point, what they were trying to do was, I think, validate what happens to her later on. You get to know this person, because I think they're assuming, people aren't going to have read the graphic novel, and there will be people out there who don't know, who haven't read countless Batman comics and won't be as invested in Barbara Gordon for this sort of one piece. You can't just where the graphic novel benefits is you can introduce these characters and people have, read comics prior and they already know about Batgirl and all that sort of stuff. And it was very much, this is Batgirl, look at what she's sort of done, where she's at in this point. She's in love with Batman, she's found her abyss, and she's not as sort of dark as Bruce in a sense that she can't keep going back to that sort of well of sort of like...
Yeah, see, that was the theme I liked about it, because they're on a rooftop and there's just this random like crime family. Is it random? I mean, does it go...
I honestly can't remember now. I can't remember.
Like Francesco, the family name. And like the nephew of the big crime villain wants to overthrow him. That's basically like the crux of the matter. Yeah. And he's got like a massive thing for Batgirl. I thought that was alright. It was when they're on the rooftop and Batman's, because she's like still treating it like she's a Cape Crusader, like proper 1940s Batgirl. Like she's just loving jumping from rooftop to rooftop. And I thought that was a cool thing to, because he eventually just says to her, it's like you're still at that point where this is exciting for you.
Yeah,
that it's still a game, and all that bit was really, really cool. And I thought that was where they should have ended it. They should have just resolved this issue with the crime dude, and it should have been like Barbara, like something in like kind of Batman foreshadowing, like something is gonna happen, and which will make you break, and kind of, because he says what you said already about going into this abyss, and then the entire idea of Batman constantly having to pick himself back out of that hole, and resisting the temptation of it. I thought that was cool, but then we both laugh when it happens. Like Batgirl pretty much just takes Bruce down, and they like kind of have a little fight, and she kisses him, and then they end up...
I don't mind, like, it's called like sex happens, you know what I mean? It's a mature theme, but there's just something about it when it's done in this type of animation and the style that, we used to see in sort of cartoons like the Justice League, and, because it wasn't, as I was a bit disappointed with the art style in general. We'll talk about that in a bit. But it felt weird. It felt a bit young and a bit sort of immature, and, sort of trying too hard to be mature. And I don't know, it just jarred a bit for me. And I'm all for Batman, having a mature relationship with people. I love his relationships with Catwoman and Talia and things like that. The Batgirl ones never sat right with me so much.
I think it's just weird.
Well, I was always raised on Dick Grayson and Barbara, but that's a different issue. Like, I know that Bruce Timm and all that, they've always been kind of invested in that Bruce and Barbara relationship, sort of before Batman and Beyond. This is going on a bit of a tangent, they're not connected, but I know they've always been a fan of Batgirl and Batman having a romantic relationship, and nothing wrong with that. It just seemed a bit like a bit sort of meh to me. There was a lot of over-sexualization, I thought, of Barbara.
Yeah, there's one bit where she's running through the park.
Yeah, it reminded me of, the sort of like Japanesey sort of, like anime and stuff like that, which is a bit sort of lingering, and I don't know, I mean, I get to a point, but yeah, it just felt a bit odd to me. And also, you're sort of meant to be empowering this woman, and you're sort of reducing her to like a sexual object. The dialogue around her, whenever she was Batgirl, at one point, that nephew dude, he has like a romantic fantasy of her by dressing up another woman as Batgirl, it's implied. And I don't know, it just kind of seemed a bit sort of 10 years ago, when at the same time they were trying to give Barbara an arc, trying to give her, like a story. Like they changed a lot, like... So she starts off, she makes her own decisions, she's empowered in that, where she says no to Batman, she walks away, she's getting on with her life, she's satisfied with a lot, and then the worst possible thing happens, and it's like the Joker. This could happen to anyone. I don't think, Alan Moore's novel's been criticised for being misogynistic. I don't think it's that. I just think the Joker, he's a nasty piece of work, and anyone is at risk around him. He does horrible things to Commissioner Gordon. It's not a reflection on men, or anything like that. So it was just a bit... She has an arc, which I think was really strong, but it was just kind of like, she has a gay best friend, which is almost a stereotype in itself. I mean, it got a lot... I had to say, there were a lot of laughs in the audience, but it just seemed like... I don't know if people were sort of willing, because we were in it's a one-night only showing, we were with fans, and I don't know if fans sometimes laugh at... It was more like nervous laughter than genuine sort of... It was just sort of like, okay, this is a bit odd, Barbara Gordon, she's a librarian in her spare time. Bit strange. Overall, the Batgirl aspect to it was never something that was really prominent in the book. She's more of this is a horrible thing that happens, and it's what pushes Batman over the edge, maybe. The ambiguous, which we'll get to sort of at the end. But overall, Batgirl, not a success, I don't think.
I wouldn't. No, I think that it started off strongly, but as soon as it became about Batgirl essentially being this like hormonal teenage girl, like lusting after Batman, it just got really weak. Because I don't have a problem with like bringing more life to it and building their relationship, because they allude to not allude to, like there's a photo where Batman's just looking up on the back computer and like Jason Todd's there, and it's just this thing of, because it is bringing across this point of like how many times can Joker push Batman, you know.
And it's you know, it's a question that's being raised a lot more nowadays, the whole when will Batman cross the line. I feel his characterization was probably what they needed to lead into a bit more, because always Batman was kind of treated as this absolute in the graphic novel. He was just sort of like, you know, he wouldn't cross the line. He starts off talking to the fake Joker, which we see in the, you know, after the Batgirl, it pretty much is beat for beat exactly the same as the graphic novel, and, you know, credit to them for bringing that to life in a sense. You know, the dialogue was lifted, and I got giddy sort of like remembering what I read on the page, hearing Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy say these lines, and they're great, you know, like... You know, they're just having fun with it at this point in their career. Mark Hamill said he was never going to play the Joker again. Now it seems like he's never going to stop playing the Joker. Not that I'm complaining, but... So we'll do Batman, and then we'll move on to Joker's characterization. So Batman, for me, he was always treated as that absolute in the graphic novel. Won't cross the line, here's why, but aware of his fate. Do you know what I mean? Like, doomed in this endless struggle. The poetry, the tragedy of Batman and the Joker is wonderful. It's why they endure so much. Look at these guys. And they touched on it in his conversation with Batgirl before the rooftop sex, and he's just like, you stare into the abyss, you know, and you know, that whole look back at you. We've heard that sort of line before. Batman sort of, he's pushed to his absolute breaking point, and he decides, I'm going to keep descending into this darkness because I can make something better come out of it, and that's bravery, and that's something that's almost inhuman to Barbara Gordon. She doesn't understand how he can do that, and she also knows that she definitely can't do it, so she makes the choice to quit. Whereas when you hear Batman sort of justify his reasons and things like that, that's when you get like a bit excited. I loved hearing that sort of dialogue from him. You know, it's just like, this is why I do what I do. And, you know, part of him sort of holding back on Batgirl was that he was caring for her, and it's harder, you know, to care about, as Barbara says, to care about the city, look after that as a whole, and then there's one person in it that you have to protect, that you're always worried about, sort of thing. He's had it with the past Robins. We know that when he's in the Batcave, Bruce is speaking to Alfred. And by the way, Alfred in like 15 seconds was just perfect. You know what I mean? Like the line of dialogue he had, I thought that was wonderful. The Batman aspects, they could do this stuff in their sleep. This team know Batman now. They can write Batman. And I just felt like Batman and the Joker, this is kind of their story. And I don't know if by spending so much time with Batgirl, it was cool. Like, you know, they were trying to. But it is like a classic Batman Joker story, and you can say, well, how many times have we done that? Well, how many times does an animated movie get released in the cinema for one night? You know, and maybe they didn't know that going in from the outset. But such a big sort of comic book, one of the most iconic sort of, you know, the artwork's everywhere. Where you Google Joker, it's one of the first images that comes up. You know, and I just feel like it was a bit of a missed opportunity. You know, and they didn't dive deep enough into sort of Batman and the whole why he's going to do what he maybe does at the end. You know, we'll talk about the ambiguous ending. We're going to get there, guys, because it's the big talking point of the whole spiel. But I don't think they dive deep enough into Batman, his motivations. A lot of it was implied. We talk about how they were explaining sort of Batgirl to the general audience, but they kind of glossed over Batman's career up to that point. And it's like, well, if you're going to say, oh, well, people know who Batman is, then people know who Batgirl is, right? So it's kind of tarnished with the same brush. I don't know, because they were all fans in the audience, you know. I wonder if might have been nice to get a bit more of Joker Batman history as a bit of a beef. Like, if they're going to add anything, maybe some past adventures between the two of them, as opposed to, you know, Batgirl story with some random sort of sexist criminals. It was just kind of odd for me, you know, bizarre in that way. How did you feel Batman's characterization was? That was a bit of a rant, sorry.
I thought it was okay. I don't, but I maintain what I'd say about a lot of things. To do with Batman, I think nowadays Batman is just Batman. Like, he's cool. I think that it's very hard to go wrong with him because his character is just so interesting and deep already that building upon it isn't really necessary in a lot of.
But I feel that's like a bit of a scapegoat in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's Batman.
At the same time, it's beautiful because it gives you a chance to do what they tried to do with Batgirl and what the Killing Joke can do, where it is just like, even though the Joke is very similar in the fact that he's just, you know, like this horrible person that everyone enjoys, it gives you the freedom to be like give Batgirl a little bit of spotlight, give the Joker more than like he already has in this, like give more to Jim Gordon as well.
But I did feel like the Joker was a bit part in this, sort of, until the ending. we'll get on the Joker now. I sort of like it felt like two stories to me. There was a Batgirl adventure, which was just there. Sort of, it does, the more I sort of think about it, the more it sort of sticks out. And then the Killing Joke, I was half expecting after that half an hour was up for the Killing Joke to finally sort of appear on the screen. This is like where it starts. Yeah. And I'm all for people doing adaptations and adding more, but it was so jarring how they spent so much time at the beginning. It wasn't sort of like a seamless blend throughout the story. I thought they might have just moved the shooting up further, like along the way, but it happens pretty early as it does in the book. And I don't know, I just thought maybe they would move that so it was a little bit further in the timeline and maybe a bit more info. I don't know how you can pad it out more, I'm not like the script writer here, but I just felt like it was sort of like really tacked on and it didn't gel for me. It didn't feel like a flowing movie, and as I say, I thought, that title card was going to come up sort of half, and I thought, yeah, now the movie starts. I was kind of excited. I was like, okay, generic Batman, Batgirl adventure over with, let's get onto the meat.
I think the fact it being so generic did it a favour in a way, because even though it's weird that they did like the sexual bit, I won't like at all. I just don't like the idea of Batman doing that, because he has this really good bond with the Robins, and the disaster that happens with Jason Todd, he didn't need to sleep with Jason Todd to make that meaningful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true,
he's a second
it's
father to these
because
people,
she's a woman. There has to be that sexual relationship.
Exactly.
I don't think so.
But I forgot my point now. Yeah, because I think it was literally just, here's a Batgirl story. We'll give you a little bit of background on her. They went over the top with it, of course, but I think it's one of those things where if we'd gone in there and just watched Killing Joke page for page, it would have been pointless,
Oh yeah, I know, but okay, there's aspects to why I want to improve upon this. We'll talk about, and basically my points sort of branch out into more sort of generic terms like art quality, music and things like that. So let's get onto the Joker and his portrayal first off. I thought this was really good, I have to say, for the Joker. I thought Mark Hamill brought something very different to it, and I was just kind of like loving it, really, to be honest. I thought, the bits, it's some of the best written dialogue the Joker's been given ever in any book, ever. Alan Moore did such a great job, and it was word for word, and I could hear those speeches. It's been used before. They used it in the Arkham Origins game. Troy Baker did a good job with the whole madness speech, they brought that in, and it was great. The things that didn't work for me with the Joker were the flashbacks, because it just sort of like, it was like, okay, you had a pretty sort of modern setting, and it felt like, God, how old is the Joker? Like, do you know what I mean? It's just like gone back in time, because the rest of it, they wanted to keep that sort of criminal noir vibe, but by sort of putting it in the past and so brown, and I would have preferred to see a more sort of 80s down and dirty Gotham, where it was sort of like, because you look at the the graphic novel, and it's these pinks and these sharp sort of purples and really nasty sort of colours and a really like murky yellow, and it really just makes you feel sick for these flashbacks in the book, and it just felt a bit muddy, a bit wishy-washy. The animation, it didn't have much zip and spark. I couldn't really emote for this dude. I thought Mark Hamill was good the way he altered his voice, and of course it gets me every time, just like what happens to his wife and this possible origin for the Joker. Really, nasty origin, but that's just a great story. And the Red Hood bit was cool, and yeah, it just felt a bit sort of like every time they did a flashback, it just slowed it down. Whereas before it was like in the when you're reading it in the book, it's some of the most exciting stuff, because if you're watching that for the first time and you haven't read the book, it's kind of like, whoa, it's the fucking origin of the Joker. It's just like possibly, maybe, but whoa, it's pretty much definitive. A lot of people hold that as this is how this dude came to be. So I don't know, for me it was a bit weak, but in terms of the joke stuff, I thought it was great. They adapted those beautiful moments from the book, like the bit where he's the dude on the poor like pig, what the bouncer things at the amusement park, and the way they just kept cutting back to him, he's just still there. It was probably some of the best jokes in it. It's just like it kept going back to it. I thought the trials that they added, taking Jim Gordon through all the amusement park, that was a bit more fleshed out, worked really well. It was some of the most upsetting stuff, and when they finally do show the imagery of what the Joker did to Barbara after he shoots her, I thought that was handled really well. I was my heart was retching, because it's just like she answers the door, boom, he's there, and the animation was, you could tell where they spent a bit more time with the animation on this one, and this is what frustrates me with these ones. As great as the Joker was, his character model was very inconsistent, and I just feel like they're making bank off of these movies, right? Just maybe give them a bigger budget, because the digital sort of animation is looking a bit flat and it really didn't pop on the big screen for me. There were a few moments where I was like, whoa, this really works, but the whole computer generated car chases, the computer generated carousel,
I've never liked that kind of stuff.
Just like, you know, that Disney stopped doing that stuff in like 2001, like with Treasure Planet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're just like, it's either animation or it's computer generated.
The thing is, the shots you're talking about where it is like so fleshed out, like for instance when like Barbara, after the Joker shot her, like she says, what are you planning to do? Like, why are you doing this? And what has he said to her? It's just like, I'm proving a point.
Yeah.
This is all time, like he's just looking and smiling at her, and it's just, and like there's this glint in his eye, and that was when I was just like, fuck.
It's a great shot.
But it's a still shot.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Don't you kind of like the animated films being like a throwback to?
But the thing is, Mask of the Phantasm looks better than this on a big screen.
You think so?
Yeah, I know so. Yeah, man.
And I thought Batman was really bland. Like, I thought his outfit was really bland.
I just feel like, you know, they got to step it up. I mean, the choreography's great in these fight scenes, and, you know, normally we're used to watching these things on our, you know, TVs at home or whatever, so it's not that cinema experience. But I was just sat in a room full of fans, and, you know, the buzz was there. People were excited. And, you know, whatever you say of the movie quality-wise, like, for me, I was a little underwhelmed. But I think, you know, I'd recommend people to check it out still.
Oh,
you
definitely.
know, but I might say to them, start it 20 minutes in. But having said that, as I say, room full of people, the buzz was there, people were laughing, people were sort of grimacing. You know, the Joker's horrible humour stand out. You know, and he's comparing Barbara to a coffee book when she's smashed.
The coffee table.
And she smashed through the coffee table. You know, it's just sick stuff like that. And for me, the buzz that really got me, when I really felt like I was watching a movie, was when Batman turns up to the amusement park, and there's just a bit of ambience, man. It started to remind me of like you know, Return of the Joker, Batman Beyond, sort of stuff like this. I was like, now it's an end game. Here we are, we're at the stage, and it didn't take much to build that up, that sort of anticipation up. You know, Batman just turns up and he's ready to square off against the Joker.
That's what I'm talking about.
I know, but you know, I'm a
Batman
Batman fan since I was 2. I just felt like, you know, it doesn't take much. Just give me maybe a bit more. I don't know what they could have added. You know, I'm sort of like saying what they should do without suggesting how to do it. But you know, I felt like maybe there were some better ways of fleshing it out.
I think they went in the right direction with it. They just kind of veered off. That's the way I think about it. I think that by adding an arc for Batgirl wasn't a bad way to go, but I maintain the fact, like what you were talking about, like as soon as Batman came along, it's like you can do that with anything, man. Put Batman in like a freaking Teletubbies episode and it becomes like the most interesting story arc of all time.
That is a really interesting story.
That's what I'm talking about, like, because I agree with you completely. You get Batman and the Joker in a room together, man. Like, I could watch 3 hours of that. You know,
well, you know,
it's just that there's such an interesting dynamic, and like nothing can really go wrong with them. Like when Batman's chasing him down after Jim Gordon basically says to him, like, because he like the Joker just tries to drive Jim Gordon mad, like Commissioner Gordon mad, and he shows him pictures of what he does to Barbara, and at the end of it, because the entire point is Joker's trying to make him go insane, because the entire idea of the novel is. It's just like this can happen in one bad. It only takes one day. It only takes one bad day, and then they square. And he says to Batman, "I want him in by the book," and Batman just doesn't reply. And it's just again, it's that ambiguity which is like great about it. And Batman's chasing him down while Joker's talking to him, but then they get into the room. And was that in the graphic novel? What? I can't remember that when they get into the room, which is like a complete. Like replica of
was that it's all like the funhouse and everything like that? Yeah, I mean,
the room where it's upside down. You know, his living. You know, like his
it was cool. Yeah,
his apartment basically like the Joker's back in the flashbacks when he was normal. Just his apartment, like little like room he has, and it's this really crappy room in Gotham. It's just like all upside down, so like tables on the ceiling and everything like that. And Batman just walks into the room. And it's just when the Joker says to him, I remember it sometimes, but it's always in different ways. And it's just like, it really is, you're watching it, it's just like, you're connecting with the Joker, and then it kind of just, that it's just like, no, I'm not. This guy is just so unfathomable. Like it's just,
and that, I think, you know, a lot's been made of sort of the ending of The Killing Joke, and we'll come to it now. So we have this epic showdown between Batman and the Joker. Final fight. Joker finally would have put the bullet in Batman, but click his gun. You know, what a joke's on him. You know,
so
it's
good.
great. You know, I love stuff like that. And of course, you know, this is where I was expecting. I was kind of, I don't know, my hopes were up a little that they were sort of going to lean it one way or the other. They left it ambiguous in the same way the book did. So the final frames, you know, Joker tells that great joke about the two escaping insane asylum people. Batman and Joker then share the laugh, and of course, Batman then puts his hands on Joker's shoulders, and then it fades. They're both laughing, and then pretty soon Batman's the only one laughing. And the whole, you know, Brian Boland said, the artist, he's been like, yeah, that's the Killing Joke. That's it. Batman's done it. The Joker's dead. You know, in this Elseworld sort of story. You know, that was the last adventure between those two, and that's why there's so much talk of either you're going to kill me or I'm going to kill you. One day it's inevitable. Batman makes one final plea to the dude. He's just like, man, come on, like,
I can
it's
help
going to
you,
happen,
yeah.
you know, give me a chance. And the Joker's like, nah, too far gone, turns his back on Batman, then sort of is resigned to his fate. I like the way they played that, and man, I just wish it was like Disney, like animation, man. Just not in like the style of it, but I wish it had the budget to just show that emotion. Just so
Okay, good,
like
that would be,
40
yeah.
people could have spent time on like those 5 seconds of the Joker's face, because we just had to rely on like the voice work, and as good as it was, you know, it's just like Batman, like, this is where the live action, they have an advantage because they can emote more behind that mask, and there's only so much you can do with that, you know.
Well, Batman just scales all the
I
time.
know, but Kevin Conroy does such a good job with it, and I just feel like the animation's not reflecting the talent that's involved anymore, and it's just frustrating me that, you know, like, you're dealing with really mature books, you're giving it an R rating, you kind of need to give it a bit more of a mature budget, you know. And I'm not saying it needs to cost like hundreds of millions, you know. I just, you know, you see the numbers for this. I don't even know what the budget was, but
When you're talking about artwork, I agree with you. There was one bit where I was just like, that is poor, and that's when he shoots Barbara right in the spine. Like, he literally goes up with the pistol and shoots her right, like, in the belly.
Yeah.
And, like, she goes back. It's a really dramatic moment, and all you see is just this, like, red splat that looks like it was done on Microsoft Paint back in the 90s. Like, it was just kind of... I agree with you on that aspect, but in the terms of, like, the final showdown between the two, I don't know. The thing that I took away from the animated series, which I didn't get from the graphic novel as much, was like, that's the one glimpse, like the glimpse of humanity with the Joker, where he is just like you were talking about. He's just like, I'm too far gone, and I've accepted that, because they're so, like, Batman and Joker, the most interesting part about them is that they're so similar, and they are just like two sides of the same coin. That is the most interesting part about them. And the graphic novel just completely, like, tears that down, where it's just like, no, Batman goes past that point, and if anyone asks me about the Killing Joke and says, like, does he kill him, I'm always just like, of course he does, because this is a standalone, like, piece of fiction that it doesn't need to relate to anything else, and the entire like thing is that the Joker's gone too far for Batman now.
Yeah.
Like, Batman needs to just take it away.
I always feel like that's how those two are destined to end. Do you know what I mean? Like, the Joker wins. He finally
Yeah,
pushes
whatever
Batman.
happens, yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like, it's, you know, it's part of the romance of being a Batman fan. It's just like, hey, Batman is doomed to do this forever. He's doomed to, like, die, like, fighting crime, and, like, forever fighting the good fight. That's the tragedy there. And the second thing is, he will absolutely break his rule and kill the Joker. He might win, like, at the beginning for, like, forever sort of thing, and save countless lives and rescue Gotham a million times, but Dark Knight Returns, man, he's going to crack that dude's neck, you know what I mean? Like, it's just... Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the poetry. Like, you know, comics never end. So we always have to sort of... Every fan's got their idea of where these characters go in the future and sort of what their story is. And there's been enough versions that you can sort of cherry pick your Batman. I'm kind of leaning towards the whole Bruce Wayne ends up with Anne Hathaway Catwoman in Florence, you know, and Inferno Branca or whatever. So, you know, but I mean, there's lots of versions of it. For me, I'm disappointed that it didn't sort of deliver on giving me that cinema experience. I think I had my hopes on, and I know it's not something that's been made to release. Of course, it's just sort of like, let's chance this at demand, and I'm glad I saw it at the cinema. And I think I might like it better on my TV screen. It might work a bit better. That's how we sort of always watch them at home, those direct-to-videos. But I would love to see more of this, so I have no regrets in supporting it. I only hope that it makes enough of an impression on Warner Bros. And DC Animation to maybe go a bit more, like go for it a bit more, because you know you've got these really expensive live action movies that are making serious bank. Just put a bit more of a little, because your animation's always been good, just give it a bit more of the sort of budget that it deserves, so these guys can tell like a seriously good sort of, not even a story, but just sort of like have the animation match the content that's actually being sort of described, because the dialogue in these doesn't deserve mismatched mouths and all that sort of stuff, and you know, disproportional sort of figures, and you know, 1 minute it looks good, the next minute it looks bad. It deserves that sort of pinnacle sort of achievement of animation to match the great quality stories that we have. And I'd love to see Batman Hush done next. I know we've got a few more
Batman
announced at San
Hush would be
Diego Comic Con.
incredible,
Yeah, but can you imagine Batman Hush, like, in a sort of the way they
that's like, that's a chunky old thing, so that could be like a good old story. What I would say about it is that I was fine with the Batgirl add-on, apart from the whole sex thing. Like, it's such a like seamless like bit of fiction anyway, like you can't really build upon it. The one thing that I really like just annoyed me so much was you have this epic ending, and it's just, you know, like Batman finally breaks. It's that whole thing of like ambiguity.
Or does he? You know, there's a lot of people that will say no, he didn't, which is fair. You know, I accept sort of either way. I'm kind of in limbo. I'm not sort of sold one way or the other. I always read it as, oh, the laughing stops.
Yeah.
So.
But in like the animated film, it's freaking like, don't try and do a Marvel, because they had it end and it was just the silence of the rain with the credits, which I was really enjoying. I was really just like, that's when I was.
That was weird in the cinema, because everyone started laughing, didn't they? Everyone in the cinema just started laughing after, not like laughing.
No, because
like,
Batman was laughing. Everyone was laughing about Batman laughing. Then everyone was laughing.
the credits hit. I think they were just sort of like, what? And then they were sort of like. And then they started laughing. It was quite a spooky moment, because there's no like music in the credits.
But there's a little bit of credits, and I enjoyed that because it's raining and it's just really quiet. And I was absorbing it, and then I was just like, "There's going to be a fucking Oracle bit," and there was. They're like, but Batgirl's just Barbara's just in a wheelchair and she's talking to Commissioner Gordon, and it's all bright and ready. And then she goes into her closet, which is like the Oracle computer, and it's just like, oh. We've just had something like one of the most incredible bits in comic books ever. And it's just like, oh, well, now we're done with that. Let's go back to business.
She's got a walk-in closet, guys. I don't know. I just like the whole way they had to do it sort of after the credits. It's like, well, we really want to end the movie here, but we don't want little boys and girls thinking that Barbara Gordon's just going to lay in a bed for the rest of her life. And it's just sort of like, well, no, she's fine. She's done well. But I don't know. Maybe you had Batgirl narrating the whole thing and then she just stopped at the end, where it was like, this is the graphic novel, that doesn't happen in the graphic novel. Maybe have her narrate the final frames after that. I don't know if they're going to put it on. It was just weird. It was tacked on. It's very bitty. The whole thing is quite bitty, and it doesn't gel, because it's, you know, it's one story that you've known, that you've grown up with, and then there's the risk aspect. They went for it, and you know, it's not completely unsuccessful. You know, I think a lot of people will be more invested in Batgirl, but in order to round her arc and make it satisfying, they've tacked on a bit at the beginning and a bit at the end. And what happens in the middle is basically she gets shot. So it's just sort of like, it's very bookendy. But yeah, I mean, Batman the Killing Joke, it's good. It wasn't great. I enjoyed it. I was happy. I liked the audience participation. I thought they had some good moments, some key bits of script. The Batman bit, like where he freaking just sort of like kicks the shit out of the Joker, I loved. Some of the animation choreography I thought was great. I loved his interaction with Alfred, too brief. And I loved the Joker Funhouse. I thought some of the scariest shit going down there. And that's almost where the crude and basic animation sort of suited it, because it just looked a hell of a lot weirder. But yeah, I'd recommend it if you're a fan of the graphic novel. But I think you just become more of a fan of the graphic novel after watching it, to be honest. I think that's a fair assessment.
Oh, definitely. If you're not already a massive fan of it, you haven't read
you're probably going to love it even more now.
Yeah, if you haven't read it, read it. Yeah. What are you doing with your life? But no, I think it's underwhelming, and I'm worried now that the blandness of DC is bleeding over to the animated series. Like the
I'm worried. Conversation.
I know.
Well, anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. That has been our Batman the Killing Joke spoiler review. Good times had by all. I'm looking forward to more DC animation reviews in the future as well, because they do churn out some pretty exciting stuff. Contrary to maybe how this review sounded overall, but we had a good time. Right. We did have a good time. I have to stress that. It's not totally without merit, that movie. And well done to the performers involved, because Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill they steal the show, as they always do. So yeah, just props to those guys. At the worst, it's another hour with those wonderful actors. So very excited for that one, guys. So make sure you tune in for more Cape and Cowcast. There'll be more reviews coming up soon. We've got Suicide Squad on the way, Jason Bourne, and of course San Diego Comic Con hit. There's a whole bunch of reactions to that, which we're still working on. Tune in for some DC and Marvel specials on those. Steve will be back as well. So dudes, capeandcow.co.uk, at Team Cape and Cow. Let us know what you thought of The Killing Joke. And of course, Cape and Cow Unlimited on YouTube. If you're watching this, thanks for that, and hello. Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. We're there. Like and subscribe. And remember, new content every week, dude. So get in touch, and thanks for listening. Take care. Bye bye.